The shotgun blast echoed like thunder across the empty field, and I froze, my heart slamming against my ribs as if it wanted to escape before the next one came. "Jordan, get down!" Joe's voice cut through the chaos, rough and urgent, his hand yanking me behind the rusted tractor just as pellets shredded the air where my head had been. In that split second, as the world narrowed to the metallic tang of fear and the warmth of his grip on my arm, I realized this wasn't just some backwoods hunting trip anymore. It was the unraveling of every lie we'd both been living. That was the moment everything shattered, but started weeks earlier, back when the summer heat in rural Ohio clung to your skin like a bad decision. I was 19, fresh out of high school, drifting through the kind of aimless days that make small-town life feel like a sentence you're serving without a crime. My dad, Tom Harlan, was the salt-of-the-earth type, mechanic by trade, volunteer fireman on weekends, the guy who'd coach Little League and grill burgers at block parties without ever cracking a smile wider than a quarter. He loved me, sure, in that gruff, unspoken way Midwestern dads do, but he never quite figured out how to bridge the gap between us. Especially not after Mom left when I was 12, packing her bags for a fresh start in Chicago that never included us. Joe Whitaker was Dad's oldest friend, the one who'd shown up at our door 15 years ago with a duffel bag and a haunted look, fresh from some stint in the Marines that he only mentioned in vague terms over beers. He was 42 now, broad-shouldered and weathered like the oak trees lining our gravel road, with salt and pepper hair that he kept buzzed short and eyes the color of storm clouds, gray and unreadable. To me, he was Uncle Joe, even though we weren't blood, the guy who'd teach me to throw a curveball, fix a carburetor, or stare down a bully without raising his voice. He worked construction, lived in a trailer on the edge of town, and never brought anyone home. Not a girlfriend, not a dog, not even a houseplant. Dad joked he was married to the bottle, but I always figured it was something deeper, something he carried like shrapnel under his skin. It was mid-July when Dad dropped the bomb. We were at the kitchen table, sweat beading on our foreheads from an ancient window AC unit wheezing like an asthmatic grandpa. "Jordan, pack a bag. You're going hunting with Joe this weekend." Up to his folks' old place in the Hocking Hills. I blinked, fork halfway to my mouth with a glob of mashed potatoes. Hunting? I'd never fired anything deadlier than a BB gun, and Dad knew it. "Why me?" I asked, trying to keep the whine out of my voice. He shrugged, eyes on his plate. "Boy needs to learn to be a man. Joe's the best teacher I got. Besides, it'll get you out of that damn video game cave." I wanted to argue, tell him I wasn't some lost cause needing a wilderness boot camp, but the words stuck. Truth was, I was lost. All right. Not in the way Dad thought, with his lectures about getting a trade or finding direction. No, it was deeper, a secret gnawing at me since sophomore year when I caught myself staring too long at the quarterback in gym class, his sweat slicked back twisting as he spiked the volleyball. Gay. The word tasted like ash, forbidden in a town where the pride flag might as well be a Confederate relic. I'd buried it under layers of denial, dating Sarah Jenkins for 3 awkward months, blasting country radio to drown out the pop anthems that made my chest ache. But at night, alone in my room with the fan whirring, I let my mind wander to what-ifs that scared me more than any ghost story. Joe picked me up Friday dawn in his beat-up Ford F-150, the bed loaded with coolers and rifles. He smelled like coffee and motor oil, handed me a thermos without a word. "Rough night?" he asked, glancing at the shadows under my eyes. I shrugged, climbing in. Just the usual. We drove north, windows down, the radio tuned low to some classic rock station, Springsteen crooning about highways and broken dreams. Joe didn't push. He never did. That's what I liked about him. With Dad, every silence was a judgment. With Joe, it was space to breathe. The cabin was a relic, tucked into the foothills like it had been forgotten by time. Weathered pine logs. A sagging porch overlooking a creek that babbled like it had secrets. No cell service. No neighbors. Just acres of woods thick with oak and hickory. The air humming with cicadas. Joe showed me the ropes that first day. How to load a .30-06. Sight down the barrel. Respect the kick. We didn't talk much. Just moved through the rituals like we'd done it 100 times. By dusk, we bagged a doe clean shot. Quick kill, and as Joe field dressed it by lantern light. His hands steady and sure. I felt a pull in my gut that had nothing to do with hunger. That night, rain hammered the tin roof, turning the world outside to a gray blur. We sat by the stone fireplace, flames crackling, nursing cans of bud from the cooler. Joe's flannel was unbuttoned at the collar, revealing a faded tattoo, a marine eagle, globe, an anchor peeking above his dog tags. Your dad tells me you're thinking college, he said, staring into the fire. I snorted. Yeah, if I can afford it. Community. Maybe. Figure out what the hell I want to do. He nodded slow, like he was chewing on the words. Tom's proud of you. Kid. Worries too much. Is all. A pause. Then quieter. He wasn't always like that. Back when we were your age, he was wild. Full of fire. I leaned forward, the heat flushing my face. Joe rarely talked about back when. What happened? To the fire. I mean, he took a long pull from his beer. Eyes distant. Life. Choices. The kind that stick with you. Thunder rumbled outside, close enough to rattle the windows. I waited, but he clammed up, like always. We turned in early, me on the lumpy couch, him in the loft bed. Sleep came fitful, dreams tangled with rifle cracks and hands that felt too real, strong, calloused, pulling me close. Saturday blurred into more woods, more lessons. But something shifted that afternoon, subtle as a shadow crossing the sun. We were tracking a buck's prints near the old barn, a crumbling red structure on the property's edge, half swallowed by vines, when Joe stopped short, his face paling like he'd seen a ghost. This place, he muttered, more to himself. Haven't been back since. He trailed off, kicking at the dirt. I pressed, curiosity overriding caution. Since what? Your folks own this. He shot me a look sharp, guarded, then softened. Yeah, long time ago. Come on, let's check it out. Might as well face the damn thing. The barn smelled of damp earth and forgotten hay. Light slanting through gaps in the siding like prison bars. Dust motes danced in the beams, and old tools hung rusty on nails. Scythes, pitchforks, a saddle cracked with age. Joe wandered deeper, his boots echoing on the plank floor, until he stopped at a stall in the back. There, carved into the wood above the gate, was a heart crude, initials inside, TH, plus JW. My stomach dropped. Tom Harlan. Joe Whitaker. Dad and Joe. Jesus, I whispered, tracing the letters with trembling fingers. Joe stood frozen beside me, his breath coming shallow. It was a lifetime ago, he said finally, voice like gravel. Summer after high school. We were kids. Jordan. Stupid. Invincible kids. The air thickened, charged with the weight of it. I turned to him, heart pounding. You and Dad. You were. He met my eyes, unflinching now. In love? Yeah. We're as close as two scared boys could get in 98 Ohio. Before don't ask, don't tell. Before everything went to hell, the confession hung there, raw and electric. I'd never imagined it, not of Dad, with his camo hats, and John Deere caps, not of Joe, the unbreakable rock. But it explained the silences, the glances that lingered too long at barbecues, the way Dad's voice cracked when Joe missed a 4th of July cookout. And me, staring at Joe in that dim light, his jaw set but eyes pleading for understanding. I felt the ground tilt, because in that moment, with the rain pattering on the roof like distant applause, I saw him, not as Uncle Joe, but as a man who'd lost everything to keep breathing. And God help me, I wanted to reach out, to bridge that chasm with my own hidden truths. But trust, it was a fragile thing, already cracking under the weight of what came next. We didn't speak of the carving on the walk back to the cabin, but it shadowed us like the clouds rolling in from the west. Dinner was venison steaks sizzling on the grill, the sizzle masking the awkward shuffle of our feet. Joe cracked jokes about my city boy knife skills, but his laugh rang hollow, and I poked at my plate, appetite soured by the storm brewing inside me. How many times had I seen them together, Dad clapping Joe on the back after a game, Joe fixing our truck without asking, and missed the undercurrent? It twisted something in me, a jealousy I couldn't name, sharp as barbed wire. That night, the rain turned biblical, sheets of it lashing the windows until the creek swelled to a roar. I lay awake, mind racing through fragments, Dad's old photo albums with Joe arm in arm at prom, both with dates. Of course, but the way their shoulders brushed, the time Joe stayed over after a blizzard, emerging from the guest room with rumpled hair and Dad's flannel, whispers I'd overheard as a kid. We can't. Joe. Not anymore. By dawn, resolve hardened in my chest. I had to know more. Not just for curiosity, for survival. If Dad could bury a love that deep, what hope did I have for my own? Sunday morning broke gray and sodden, the woods dripping like a wept-out sponge. Joe was up early, nursing black coffee on the porch, rifle propped beside him like a sentinel. Buck's still out there, he said as I joined him, handing over a mug. Steam curled between us, a fragile veil. I sat on the steps, knees drawn up. About the barn, he tensed, but didn't interrupt. It doesn't change anything, does it? You're still you. Dad still. I faltered, the word Dad tasting foreign now. Joe sighed, setting his mug down with deliberate care. It changes everything and nothing. Kid, that's the bitch of it. We were 18, drunk on freedom and each other. Thought we could outrun the world. But Ohio in the 90s? Church on Sundays. Football on Fridays. Being queer was like painting a target on your back. He paused, gaze fixed on the mist-shrouded hills. Your dad. Tom. He chose me first. Sneaking out to that barn, hearts pounding like we were committing treason. But then college hit. He got that scholarship to OSU. Met your mom at a frat party. She was light. Jordan, sunshine in a sundress. He fell hard, or convinced himself he did. Me, I enlisted. Marines gave me structure, a way to bury it all under drills and deployments. We wrote letters at first, then calls that turned to silence. By the time I came back, he was married, expecting you. We shook hands like strangers, built this. Friendship on the bones of what was. His voice cracked on the last word, and I felt it echo in my own throat. Did you ever? After, the question slipped out, bold and terrified. Joe shook his head, a ghost of a smile. Nah, too much water under the bridge. And Tom, he's straight as an arrow now, or thinks he is. We don't talk about it. Ever, but the way he said it, laced with old ache, told me otherwise. I swallowed, pulse thundering. I'm glad you told me. A lie. Half-truth? No, relief. Pure and dizzying. Because in naming his ghost, he'd cracked open the door to mine. We geared up for one last hunt, the air crisp with petrichor and promise. The woods enveloped us, ferns brushing our jeans, the ground soft underfoot from the downpour. Joe moved like he belonged there, silent, predatory grace while I trailed, rifle heavy in my grip. An hour in, we crested a ridge overlooking a meadow, goldenrod swaying in the breeze. There, grazing oblivious, was the buck, majestic rack, muscles rippling under dappled hide. Joe raised the scope, breath steady. "You're shot," he whispered, stepping back. My hand shook as I aimed, the crosshairs dancing. This wasn't just a deer, it was a threshold, a test of the man I might become. Squeeze the trigger, prove I could kill cleanly, face the world head-on. But as the buck lifted its head, eyes locking on mine, dark, knowing, I hesitated. Joe's hand steadied my elbow, warm through the fabric. "Breathe. Jordan. It's okay to miss." The words unlocked something. Tears pricked my eyes. Not from fear, but release. I lowered the gun. "I can't." "Not today." He didn't question it, just nodded, slinging his rifle. We sat on a fallen log then, backs against a birch, sharing jerky from his pack. The buck vanished into the underbrush, unmolested. "You know," Joe said after a while, "your dad missed his first shot too. Cried like a baby." I held him while he swore he'd never touch a gun again. Laughter bubbled up, surprising us both, rich, unguarded. In that meadow, with sunlight piercing the canopy like spotlights, I felt seen. Not as Tom's son, but as Jordan, flawed, questioning, alive. The drive home was quieter, the radio off, windows cracked to lead in the highway's rush. Joe dropped me at the curb, engine idling. "Thanks for coming. Kid. Means more than you know." I nodded, throat tight. "Anytime," but as I watched his taillights fade, a knot formed, unspoken words, the weight of what I'd carry alone. Dad was in the garage when I walked in, grease-streaked and humming an old Eagles tune. "How'd it go?" he asked, wiping his hands on a rag. "Good," I lied, forcing a grin. "Bagged a dough." Joe's a hell of a teacher. He clapped my shoulder, pride in his eyes. "That's my boy." Dinner that night was meatloaf and green beans. The three of us, Dad, me, and the ghost at the table, talking weather and high school football. But under it all, currents swirled, my secret mirroring theirs, a fragile trinity bound by silence. I went to bed early, scrolling Tumblr on my phone under the covers, forums full of coming-out stories. Rainbows in the Rust Belt. Hope flickered, tentative as a match in wind. Monday blurred into routine, job applications at the mill. Awkward text from Sarah asking if I missed her. But Joe texted midweek. "Coffee Saturday? Neutral ground." My heart leaped. Neutral ground, meaning the diner on Route 23, away from Dad's ears. I said yes, and spent the days overthinking every angle. Was this mentorship, or something more? Did he suspect? By Saturday, nerves jangled like loose change as I slid into the booth, vinyl creaking under me. Joe was already there, 2 mugs steaming between us. He looked tired, lines deeper around his mouth. Rough week, he admitted, stirring sugar absently. Side accident, guy lost 2 fingers. Remind you how quick it all goes south. We talked shop at first, his crew, my maybe classes at Columbus State, then veered to safer waters, movies, the Browns' slim playoff chances. But the barn loomed, inevitable as a storm front. "I've been thinking," I started, voice low, "about what you said. It helps. Knowing I'm not the only one who's felt like this." His mug paused midair, eyes sharpening. "Felt like what?" "Jordan." The diner noise faded, clatter of plates, sizzle of bacon, to a hum. I leaned in, words tumbling. Lost. Like there's this part of you that doesn't fit the map everyone's handed. Staring at guys when you shouldn't, wondering if you'll ever. I stopped. Heat flooding my face. Joe's expression shifted, shock, then something softer. Pained. Kid, Jordan, you're talking about you? I nodded. The admission a dam breaking. Relief crashed in, sweet and terrifying. He reached across, hand covering mine brief. Electric. Listen to me. You're brave as hell for saying it. But this town's a minefield. Your dad. He loves you, but he's got his own ghosts. Don't rush this. Wisdom from a man who'd buried his own heart. We parted with a hug in the parking lot. Awkward. Lingering. His cologne mingling with rain-damp air. Driving home. Windows down. I blasted Hosier. Windows down. Feeling lighter than I had in years. Trust. Budding like spring corn. But trust is a house of cards in a windstorm. And the gale was coming. The next 2 weeks were a fever dream of stolen moments and half-formed dreams. Joe and I texted daily. Innocent stuff at first. Memes about bad hunting shots. Links to articles on queer history in the heartland. But laced through were undercurrents. Questions veiled as jokes. Ever think about leaving this podunk town? Or what's the one thing you'd change about your old man? I dodged the deeper ones, but they chipped at the walls I'd built. At home, Dad noticed the shift, my longer showers, the way I'd zone out at dinner. You seeing someone? He asked one night. Fork spearing a meatball. I choked on my milk. What? No. Just. Figuring shit out. He grunted, unconvinced, but let it drop. Joe, though he saw through the cracks. Our next meetup was a hike at Hocking Hills proper. State park trails winding through sandstone gorges like veins in the earth. Fall was creeping in, leaves turning bronze and crimson, the air crisp with the promise of change. We hiked the old man's cave loop, boots crunching leaves, conversation flowing easy until we hit an overlook, a sheer drop to the river below, mist rising like smoke signals. Remember when I taught you to skip stones here? Joe asked, tossing a flat rock that kissed the water 3 times before sinking. I laughed. The memory sharp, me at 10, chubby-cheeked and earnest, impatient as a saint. Yeah, you made it look easy. He turned, leaning on the rail, wind tousling his hair. Nothing's easy, Jordan, but some things are worth the bruises. Our eyes met, and there it was, the spark I'd been chasing, mirrored in his gaze. Not minner to charge, but man to man, equal in hunger. My breath caught. He stepped closer, hand brushing my arm. Tell me to stop, he murmured, voice rough as the gorge walls. I didn't. The kiss was tentative at first, lips tentative, tasting of salt and hesitation, then deepening, hands finding wastes, the world narrowing to the heat between us. It was my first real one, clumsy but real, igniting nerves I didn't know I had. We broke apart gasping, foreheads pressed, laughter bubbling up through the shock. Holy shit, I whispered. Joe grinned, boyish and wrecked. Yeah, holy shit, we didn't go further, too public, too soon, but the hike back was charged. Fingers brushing accidental on purpose. Promises unspoken. Back in town, secrecy became our oxygen. Coffee runs turned to late-night drives. Parking at make-out spots by the quarry where teenagers fogged windows with less at stake. Joe was gentle, guiding without pushing, kisses that lingered, hands that mapped shoulders and backs with reverence. You're beautiful. You know that, he'd say, voice low in the truck's cab, and I'd melt, insecurities dissolving in his gaze. For the first time, I felt whole, no hiding, no shame. He shared more, too, stories of barracks hookups cut short by DDT paranoia. The letter from Dad post-Iraq, I can't do this anymore. Marry her. Be happy. Betrayal stung even in retelling. But Joe's eyes on me healed it, turning pain to something shared. Yet cracks formed. Dad grew suspicious, his questions sharpening. Who's got you smiling like a fool? I'd mumble about friends, but guilt gnawed. Joe warned me. He's my best friend. This could torch everything, but the pull was magnetic, defying reason. Then came the blow of Friday night. Dad bursting into the kitchen, face thunderous, phone clutched like evidence. What the hell's going on with you and Joe? My blood froze. What? He thrust the screen at me. A blurry photo, time-stamped last Tuesday. Me and Joe at the diner, hands too close on the table. Sent anonymous, from a blocked number. Who sent this? I stammered, but Dad was beyond reason. Veins bulging. Doesn't matter. Is it true? You too. Christ. Jordan. He's old enough to be your... He choked. The word unspoken. Rage boiled at the intruder, at Dad's judgment, but fear choked it. It's not what you think. Lame. Even to me. He stormed out, slamming the door, tires squealing as he peeled toward Joe's trailer. I raced after, heart in my throat, arriving as Dad's truck idled in the drive. Voices raised inside. Peering through the screen door, Dad jabbing a finger at Joe's chest. You son of a bitch. My kid, after what you swore. Joe's face was stone, but his eyes wounded, cornered. Tom, listen. It's not like that. Jordan's an adult. He came to me. Dad laughed, bitter and broken. Came to you, like I did? You prey on the lost ones, don't you? Marines didn't beat the predator out of you. The words landed like punches, echoing the carving's shadow. Joe recoiled, fists clenched. You don't get to rewrite history. You left me. Tom chose the white picket fence over us. Dad's face crumpled, then hardened. And I'd do it again. For him. For my family. He shoved past, spotted me in the doorway. Disgust twisted his features. Get in the truck. Now. I followed, numb, the ride home silent as a grave. That night, Dad locked himself in his room. I texted Joe, I'm sorry. I didn't mean his reply. Not your fault. Talk tomorrow? But tomorrow brought worse. School friends whispered, the photo circulating on Snapchat, rumors twisting, Harlan's boy banging the vet. Freaks run in the family. Sarah cornered me at the gas station. Is it true? About you. And him. Humiliation burned, but defiance sparked. Yeah. And she recoiled, pity in her eyes. You're broken. Jordan, broken. The word festered, fueling a reckless call to Joe that evening. Meet me at the barn. The old one. He hesitated, bad idea, but came, headlights cutting the dark like accusations. We stood in the hayloft, moonlight pooling silver, the heart carving a sentinel above. This has to stop, he said, voice strained. Your dad's right. I'm too old, too damaged. I stepped close. Desperate. No. You make me feel alive. Please. Our kiss was frantic, a dam against the flood, but then tires crunched outside. Dad's truck, engine gunning. He burst in, shotgun in hand, the family heirloom, rusted but loaded. Get away from my son. The blast was warning. Into the dirt floor, pellets ricocheting off beams. I dove behind bales, Joe shielding me instinctive. Tom, put it down. This ain't you. Dad advanced, eyes wild, tears streaking. You took everything, my friend. Now my boy, I'll end it. Chaos erupted, Joe tackling him, wrestling the gun, me screaming, lunging to help. A shot fired wild, grazing Joe's arm, blood blooming dark on his shirt. Dad froze, horror dawning as Joe slumped, gasping. Sirens wailed distant. Neighbor must have called. Dad dropped the gun, collapsing to his knees. What have I done? I knelt by Joe, pressing my hoodie to the wound, tears blurring. Hang on. Please. His hand found mine, weak but warm. It's okay. Kid. Just. Tell him the truth. The truth, love. Buried and reborn. A cycle we could break. Paramedics swarmed the barn like locusts, their lights strobing blue and red across the blood-streaked floor, turning the nightmare surreal. Joe was stretchered out first, stable. They said, the bullet clipping muscle but missing bone, while Dad sat cuffed on a bale, head in hands, murmuring prayers I'd never heard him utter. Me? They wrapped me in a scratchy blanket. A deputy taking my statement in the ambulance bay. Self-defense? Or was it? I shut down. Words failing as shock numbed the edges. Betrayal layered thick. Dad's rage born of his own ghosts. The town's vultures circling with pitchforks of judgment. The hospital in Athens was a fluorescent purgatory, beeping monitors. Stale coffee. The undercurrent of regret. Joe got 30 stitches in a sling, released by midnight with painkillers and a warning to avoid stress. I drove him home, the cab thick with unspoken wreckage. Don't blame yourself, he said, voice slurred from meds. Tom's hurting. Always has. At his trailer. I help him inside, flicking on lamps, brewing tea like it could mend flesh. He caught my wrist as I turned to leave. Stay. The plea in his eyes undid me. I did, curling on the couch under a quilt that smelled of him, sleep evading as memories replayed, the kiss in the gorge, the shotgun's roar. Dawn brought the reckoning. Dad was out on bail, assault with a deadly, reduced to reckless endangerment thanks to the deputy knowing him from the firehouse. He showed at my door by 7, hollow-eyed, flannel rumpled. Jordan, one word, cracked open. I let him in, but stood arms crossed, a barrier of hay bales in human form. What the hell? Dad, you could have killed him. He sank onto the couch, elbows on knees. I know. God, I know. Seeing you too. It ripped the scab off. That barn. Us. It was the best and worst of me. I buried it so deep, thought it'd stay dead. But you're my blood. I couldn't let history repeat. Anger surged, hot and righteous. History? You mean love? Yeah. Terrifying concept in this shithole town. Sarcasm masked the hurt. The boy who'd worshipped him now, seeing the cracks. He flinched. It's not that simple. I chose you. Your mom, stability. Joe understood, or said he did. But when I saw you with him, tears welled, unashamed. I saw myself losing you too. The confession hung, a bridge or a bomb. I sat beside him, the couch dipping under our weight. You won't lose me, but you have to let me be me. Gay, straight, doesn't change that I'm your son. He nodded, slow, the fight draining. I love you, Jordan. Always have. Just. Scared shitless of screwing it up. We talked then, really talked for the first time. About Mom's leaving. Not for a man, but for herself. Chasing our dreams Dad called foolish. About his college nights. Drunk dialing Joe until shame silenced him. About the carving, etched in a night of stolen courage. By noon, we'd called Joe speakerphone. Tentative truce. Tom, Joe said, voice steady. We gotta hash this. Dad swallowed. Yeah. Beers at the house. Neutral ground. The living room that evening was a minefield of awkward silences and clinking bottles. Dad and Joe on a couch. Me in the armchair, positions from 100 game nights. Now charged. Apologies flowed halting. Dad for the gun. Joe for crossing lines, me for the secrecy that lit the fuse. But under it, truths surfaced. I never stopped loving you, Dad admitted to Joe. Voice thick. Just. Redirected it. To him, Joe nodded, eyes glistening. I get it. Hell, I envied it. But Jordan, he's got his own path. Let him walk it. By night's end, hugs replaced handshakes, fierce, forgiving. Not fixed, but fractured light through stained glass. The town didn't fade easy. Whispers dogged me at the mill interview, Harlan drama, pass. And the photos Cinder turned out a jealous ex of Sarah's, stirring shit for kicks. But Joe and I, we slowed, coffee over kisses, building on friendship's bones. Dad even joined a PFLAG meetup in Columbus, dragging me along, graying Dad swapping stories. Rainbows in the rear view. Winter hit hard that year, snow blanketing the fields, turning the world muffled and new. Christmas Eve, we three gathered at the cabin. No rifles, just cocoa and a fire roaring defiance at the cold. Joe strung lights on the porch. Dad carved the ham, and I set the table. The heart from the barn echoed in every glance. As midnight told, snow falling soft outside, Joe pulled me aside in the kitchen. Proud of you, kid, for fighting for us all. His kiss was chaste, a seal on the chaos we'd survived. Trust, it wasn't rebuilt in a day or a season. It came in layers. Dad's hesitant questions about my first date, a barista from Athens. Nervous but kind, Joe's stories over whiskey. Scars fading to stories, my own voice. Steady, in the mirror, claiming the boy who'd stared too long. We returned to the barn come spring, not for ghosts, but to sand the carving smooth, letters blurring to memory. Let rest, Dad said, hammer in hand. Joe nodded. Yeah, new chapters, and in the hayloft, golden hour painting us warm. I stood between them, sons of the same soil, lovers of the light. The world beyond Ohio stretched vast. But here, in this reclaimed space, trust bloomed, fragile, fierce, forever changed.